All right, and we are live. Good
Hi.
afternoon. So, Clementine, you were in the middle of telling me about what you were reading. Do you want to?
Yes. So
Um,
I'm in the middle of way too many books because I put, things off and I started a reread of a series that I've loved. But I do want to make some progress on the book That Wooden Bird by Mac Lawrence. That's what I want to do today. I have the physical book and I have it also for my library as an audio, so I can read along and pay attention because I did read this much, so far I'm like 100 something pages in, but I'm not paying, I think, close enough attention because I've read it, for my commute, which is a little bit also not long enough. And I think I'm right at the moment where it starts to be also interesting, and I think it's important that I try and read along a little bit. So tonight is perfect for that. And what are you going to be doing tonight? I mean,
well,
I
I wish I were reading tonight. I have. So I was feeling a little bit sick over the weekend and throughout the first couple of days of the week. So I didn't get to do the Dungeons and Dragons prep that I desperately need to do for tomorrow. For context, anyone watching this back, um, we're starting a new campaign.
Mhm.
So I will be. I sat down yesterday and read the whole chapter for tomorrow, but I just need to like take notes and make a list of stat blocks I need to gather and those sorts of
Mhm.
things. So I will be working on the Candlekeep Mysteries, and I will just be prepping the first adventure, and it should be a
And if
fine.
anybody has any questions, I will have to plug my video because
No,
I'm
I'm
a
not going to say
player.
anything at all. I don't know. If you've played the Candlekeep Mysteries,
Yes.
and if you wanted to ask something, maybe then we could have a conversation. But
Yeah.
I feel like you need to leave yourself open to potentially playing these things in the future. So I wouldn't want to say
Yes.
much.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess I did have a question with the Candlekeep Mysteries because we were planning, actually. We have we're a group of seven, right? Six players and a DM, and we wanted to run it a little bit differently because the principle with the Candlekeep Mysteries is that you have those kind of a little bit closed adventure in the same world.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like an
through
anthology.
Yes, an anthology with different levels at each turn. And I think the idea is that Angela would not always be the one to DM, and we could help her out with that. But I guess the problem that I see maybe is if there's like one element that could be like potentially like a spoiler that they reuse in other levels, because probably we would want to prepare a little bit in advance for the next one, while we're still playing the first one. So, but I
Yeah,
guess
so I think anyone who DMs is just going to have to commit to
yeah,
not using their meta knowledge. Like, I
exactly.
know a little bit more about the setting of Candlekeep than anyone else right now, and
Hmm.
whoever DMs will probably read that setting chapter at
Yeah.
the beginning of the book. So, um, but that being said, I have no idea how that setting is used or is
Hmm.
going to play out throughout the rest of the
Sure.
adventures, and it really does seem very like isolated. Like
Hmm.
this first one is really like just inside the keep, right? Like so it definitely feels like throughout the rest of the adventure we'll be exploring deeper into like the secrets of the
Sure.
library. Um so yeah. I think that there are some people who would not want to play the way that we're playing, and I think that
Yeah.
that's totally
No,
fair.
no, it's
Um
totally fair.
yeah.
I personally don't mind, because I will probably DM at some point, and I personally don't mind, like playing dumb and not,
Yeah.
doing anything with that. Also, I'm terrible sometimes with remembering things, so I'm sure I won't remember, even if I've seen like some of the monsters and stuff that are in others. I won't remember the set blocks, and I wouldn't want to remember them
Well,
anyway.
to be
I
honest,
find it,
like the stat blocks that I'm not using tomorrow, I didn't even look at them. Like
yeah.
I know where they are, like I know what page they're on, but I'm not reading them. Um,
Because I have also a lot more fun when I play when I'm not thinking about the stat blocks and how easy or hard this kind of monster will be. Because I'm like, yeah, what can I do? And like I'm more in the mindset of what can I use to hit this thing, or
yeah, I
obviously.
think creative thinking is always good, and we should also give each other carte blanche to, if you want to. tweak this stat block or change this thing in order to keep it interesting and fresh, we can do that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we can temper our expectations.
Yeah.
Good.
If
Well, do we
anybody's
want
in
to?
the
Sorry,
chat, if
what was that?
anybody's in the chat, if they want to tell us, what they'll be reading, or if they will be reading, or if they have other things to do, like getting dinner ready, or
Or if you're writing or working or any of those things.
yeah.
I'm really hopeful that maybe the first 2 or 3 sprints will be this, and then I can open one of our books, because I finished Under the Whispering Door, so that means I've read 2 out of the 7 already.
Yeah.
And we're not even through the first month, so
Yeah.
go me. And for context, we expected that I would maybe read 1 a month,
Yes.
and then
But you've
actually
been successful.
yes, I've been very successful. Woo! Celebrate. Alice is looking at me very funny. He's like, I don't know what you're doing.
Why are you doing this to me?
I'm sorry. Oh,
Okay.
goodness gracious. Should we start? How long do you want the first one to be?
I don't really know. Up to you.
Okay.
Because I know you're prepping also, so I don't know how disruptive it is.
Yeah, why don't we start with one that's a little bit longer? Also, everyone, for context, like the computer that I'm looking at camera wise is also the computer that, if I finish all of my reading and writing and I need to start like finding stat blocks and things, this is the computer I'll be using. So you might see me disappear as I rearrange myself, and then I will reappear in that situation. So cool. All right. I'm gonna say 40 minutes.
Okay.
Because hopefully I can get a lot done in 40 minutes. I feel like that's a significant amount of time.
But if you start researching this one thing, it can go into a into a long time.
Well, I will say that I read the whole thing, so I don't really have any questions right now. It's really just like compiling information. I guess if I find something really surprising somewhere, then some research might ensue.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be pretty streamlined. Alrighty, I'm gonna share my screen. And we're off.
See you in 40 minutes. Hello, hello.
Hello, that did scare me. I,
You
I
were fully preparing and did not realize. Yeah, I've been looking at the timer, but reading is a little bit easier. How did everyone do? I did read a good 40 pages, so I'm good. And
nice.
I'm actually liking it a bit more versus this, like, as something really intriguing. There's a lot of mystery. I don't know how much I can say about this book without spoiling anything. It's one that I would have a very hard time, I bet, even when I've read the whole book, of like, describing it. So we follow two young children, teens, preteens, kind of thing. It's not really said in great detail how old they are, right? Um, so one of them's a boy, and he's inside the library, which is which basically is like immense and has like a lot of knowledge and all the books that you could possibly think that anybody has ever written. And they seem to be in this isolated setting. He's stuck with four other of his brothers and sisters that he calls brothers and sisters because they've been through this sort of training kind of thing. So they have like each of them has a special ability, but he doesn't have that. So he's kind of, picked up the abilities that other have. For example, one of them is like a historian, the other one is a psychologist. There's one of them is like a murderer, kind of spy, um, and it's really interesting because like they have this assistant and this soldier that are helping them, but not really helping them because they're part of the library. And those are the most mysterious parts in there that I don't really understand what they are. And on the other side, you have Livera, who's this street kind of urchin, country urchin. So she's coming from the desert and she's kidnapped and then saved and brought to this big city. And now she's training to be a librarian for the library. But I think it's not the same time frame because like it's the library just seems different. So I know from the synopsis they do talk about like that they are brought together in some way, but right now I'm very intrigued because I don't see how, and I hope I did not say too much about this book. But yeah,
Yeah, I am personally not planning on reading it. I am not a Mark Lawrence gal. Um, but hopefully anyone watching along does not feel spoiled. But I don't think you spoiled anything. That seemed pretty synopsis-y rather than spoily.
yeah, I think the synopsis has a little bit of a different kind of take, but I think that what intrigues me right now the most is like really the world setting and what it is, right? More than anything else. I did try to read the Restister before, and I did enjoy what I was reading, but for some reason I did like stop and did not continue. So I, for sure, this is the series that I have. This book is the one that I have physically from Mark Lawrence, but if I really like it, I will come back for sure at some point to Red Sister. But like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I pushed through Red Sister and did not have a good time. Um, it wasn't, I didn't find it to be like overly offensive or anything. I just didn't like it. I didn't have fun. So,
Yeah, I think I personally did not like have any kind of attachment to the characters when I started to read it, but I think also I got it from as an audio, and I read it exclusively through audio, so I think it was a lot harder. And I think it's kind of the
yeah, I
same.
found it to be a little bit confusing too, which is probably partially
Mm.
because I was listening to it on audio.
I didn't find it that confusing, but I find this one confusing though. But I think it's purposely confusing, and there's like a few segments and uh, a few little like hints and things in there that made me really intrigued. Continuing. I do think that one of the characters, like Levira, does remind me a little bit of the main character of the Red Sister a little bit, just because
From the description, it matches a
you
little.
know, she's this scrappy orphan. She's very feisty a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do have to say right now I like her better than I like the character in Red Sister. But I'm still not completely entranced about the characters or anything like this. Um so far so good. It's looking like a good book, and probably I would continue if it's just for the magic and the world. But it's if it continues this way, it's not going to be for sure like a favorite because um, of the characters that I don't love
Right.
completely, which is totally fine, right? But yeah.
Yeah.
For now, also what I think I like the least is at the beginning of each chapter he put like little paragraph, like a little paragraph or just a sentence of different books, and so far I don't see a connection at all with the story, or like I was considering at some point if they were, you know, from the library, and I think they are, but like it seemed at some point that they seem also to be maybe actual quotes, or I don't know. It's a little bit weird the way it's done. And especially in the beginning, there were even like some passages that were not even like a full sentence. So you had the dot 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 and then the continued and then dot dot dot, and it was very jarring because you don't have a continuity from one to the next. At least maybe I didn't pay enough attention, and some people will roast me, and they're completely allowed to, but I don't see right now that it's adding anything, so that's the only thing. But
Sometimes it takes a while for stuff like that like for it to become
yeah,
apparent what that sort of
no
thing
no
you're doing.
no.
Yeah.
And there's certainly like a couple of them that were a little bit interesting in what they were saying, but like at the beginning, I was very lost with them. I'm a little bit better, but I'm still. Are they really needed? Because they're
Yeah.
talking about like something like really historical about like when the library was founded and stuff, and which is nice if there is something going towards later on, which I'm willing to wait for it.
Yeah, as much as I didn't enjoy Red Sister, I don't think that Mark Lawrence is incompetent in any way. So I'm sure that those epigraphs will build to
Yeah,
something eventually. Yeah.
yeah, no. He certainly like also his prose. I mean, it's very easy to read. It's very compelling for sure. So. And his chapters are short, so it's pretty good.
Good. Good. Yeah, I my prep went well. I've taken all of the notes I'm going to take. I'm just making a list of the stat blocks that I need to compile and print out. So I think I'll be able to finish that during our next sprint, and then we should be good to go. I'm
Cool.
still thinking about how I want to do the map for tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, parts of it will be easy and parts of it will not be easy. So I'm still kind of noodling on that. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty confident with the what we've got.
I mean, we are in person, so I don't know what you're talking about in terms of map, of course, and how easy or hard you want it to be. But since we're in person, you don't have to necessarily
Yeah,
do
so
it
I
there.
could. You're right. I could just sketch it out as we go, which would be an option. Um, yes, and that is one of the options I've been thinking about.
Mhm.
But, cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Are there
Well, I guess I should
anybody?
probably actually tell you how I felt about Under the Whispering Door at some point too. Uh,
Sure. Are there people in the chat who want to say what they've read and how much they've read, or?
I don't think we've got anyone in the chat right now, my friend.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
but yeah, I had a hard time rating Under the Whispering Door.
Mhm.
I don't remember what I ended up giving it. I was like in between a 3 and a 4. It is a very competent book, like it's competently written. I the fact that I struggled with it so much at the beginning, I think is like notable, right? Like
Mhm.
I think that if I was reading it without any outside influence, I would have put it down after maybe a chapter.
Mm.
Um, I
Which
thought
is
the ending.
sad
Sorry.
because which is sad because I think with the ending, it is still worth it in my opinion, right? But it's
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you loved it, which is
yeah, no, I'm biased.
good. Yeah, yeah. I found the ending to be a little grim and a little bit cliche. Like I wish that it had like yeah, yeah. Like I know that it wanted to have like a very optimistic ending, which is great. And I'm usually like a full proponent for happy endings. I felt that they didn't entirely earn the one that they got. Um, so I got to the end and I was like, eh. And then of course they try to make it a little bit bittersweet because they lost out on like the catharsis that they would have had they followed things to their natural conclusion. And so then they did that, and I was like, yeah, I knew that was coming too. So I don't know. It felt a little bit. Um, it was fine. I, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was right. It made me cry at points, but it felt a little bit more like I could tell that that's what it was trying to do, which is fine. But like, I don't know. I still had mixed feelings at the end.
I guess it probably comes down to the fact that you didn't love maybe the characters so much, because like then you could like analyze and get behind all those things and not be in the feels, right? And then you were like, oh yeah, it was a little bit cliche and all those things and stuff. I have to say I didn't think of anything of any place where it would take me because I just loved the characters and the story, right? So I just put down all my thoughts and just read whatever was happening to them, and that was it, right? So it's probably why I liked it so much, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's fair. It's fine.
Yep. All right. So, how long do you want our next sprint to be?
Oh, and I should ask you.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take me very long to get through writing out the stat blocks, and I think I'm just going to wait to like print them until after we're done with the stream. So, why don't we do a short one
Mhm.
just to like get me through that task, and then yeah, we can open a book, which would be fun. Um, how short is too short? Um,
I think you still need what 20-25 minutes.
yeah, we can do 20. And then, yeah, at the end of 20 minutes, we'll come back. We'll pick a book. We'll see if it's available, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
All right. Good luck.
It did make me gasp.
Well, I had just so it only took me like maybe 5 minutes to make the list I needed to make. And this time we do have people watching. So anyone who's here, let us know your progress. So it only took me like 5 minutes to make my list. And then I was like, what do I do? So I'm reading or I'm listening to Fire Study right now, which is the third in the Poison Study series. And so I just put that audiobook on. And I was just about to start crocheting. I like messed around on my phone a little bit. I was just about to start crocheting when it went off. So yeah, I'm making a oh, here, I can show you the one I already made. So I wound some of my yarn into like I bought a Swift and ball winder, y'all. It's very exciting. So I wound some of my yarn and I crocheted this like holder for it to keep it nice and sturdy so that it doesn't like unravel or collapse when I start knitting. Yeah. And I'm making a second one out of pink so that because I'm using hand-dyed yarn, I'm going to alternate the skeins. So because they're just a little tiny bit of a different shade. But, yeah, it should be good. Oh no, Scorpio. Tragedy.
It's okay. Sometimes we get distracted. Twitter, all social media can be a little bit, you scroll and you look around.
Yes. Yes. And you let us know what you need from us. If you need Twitter acceptance, we can give Twitter acceptance. If you need Twitter scolding, we can we can provide.
We can tell you, no, you should read if you really want to read it, right?
Oh my goodness, I cannot Twitter very much. I certainly don't tweet. I really only go onto Twitter when my friends send me things, and usually they're bad. And I'm like, this made me sad. Atlas, do you want to come up? No.
I just have an account because I was looking for like news information quickly when I was still living back in France. I removed my account and then I put it back just because for book readathons, because at some point I think now a lot of them have Discords, right? But before, when I started to join in 2020, it was a lot of it was using Twitter, right, for information. But now I think I haven't used Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter for 2 years. And I'm happy for it, honestly, because every time I had something, it was always something bad.
Yes. I have not logged into Twitter for a very long time. I think the most recent time I visited Twitter was yesterday when my friend sent me the Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris and Elon Musk's reply to Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, which was gross and awful. And then it made me sad. So then yeah, that's what Twitter usually does to me. I like to look at crazy videos. Yeah, Scorpio, sometimes my friends send me the what are they called? Holding my breath or biting my tongue or something, the on the edge of your seat videos where you don't know if it's going to be good or bad, will the parkour person fall off the building or whatever. Yeah, they make me very stressed out. I stress.
Yeah, me too. Those videos even you see also the comedy videos of they take a bunch of actual real people who missed a step and then they fall down all the stairs, or they do this biking and they try to run and then I always feel bad. I'm like, that must have hurt. I hear other people laughing and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Clementine, you would not believe what we grew up with. So have you, and if you've heard of this, then tell me to stop and I won't describe it. But when I was a kid, one of my it was really my dad and my sister, one of their favorite shows to watch was called America's Funniest Home Videos. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So all of those videos that you're talking about where people trip or they're carrying their birthday cake and they fall and it gets in their face or whatever. People would used to before there were phones, right? They would record them on camcorders or whatever, and there would be funny ones. And because the internet wasn't as pervasive as it is now, they would send them into this nationwide TV show. and then they would do it with like funny commentary, but it was these like 30-second clips. I'm like, it was TikTok before we had TikTok, or like
Yeah.
it was Twitter before we had Twitter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to some extent, I know that we had some shows that were a little bit like this in France, and we actually had a lot of reruns and some of them that were also from America or other countries, and probably I've seen some of the most like that we would call viral ones now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I know viral is a term that we've used in this, in the definition of a term for social media, and started that,
Yes,
right? Because it didn't have the
absolutely.
same.
I'm going to leave you for 30 seconds. I will still be able to hear you. I'm going to go get my pile of books so that we can pick one.
Yes, that is exciting because for Scorpio, Angela finished her book Under the Whispering Door a few days ago, so she should be able to, now that she finished her prep for D&D, she should be able to pick a new book, and she has 5 books left that are repped, so which I have to say I don't remember 2 or 3 of them, so I'm not 100% sure what they were, so there you
I
go.
love that you don't remember them. I feel like if I wrapped books for you, Atlas, do you want to be up or down? Where do you want to be? Atlas
That
is
you
just
would
staring
remember.
at me, but he doesn't want to come up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
okay,
be
I know that I have a terrible poker face, so I grabbed them, I thought about them, and then while I was wrapping them, I took my time not remembering what they were, essentially.
so it was deliberate.
And the ones that you already pulled out were the ones that I mostly remember. I think I remember one of them for sure, but after that, I'll say, "Oh yeah, I know."
Yeah, yes. There are some that I expect. Like, so there we have these 2 big ones.
Mhm.
I am worried about these 2 really big ones. I think one of them, I can't remember the name of it. What's the one that you don't think I'm gonna like? The grimdark one that you like that you don't think I'm gonna like?
Oh, the Joe
The red one.
Abercrombie,
Yes.
the first Law World.
So
Yeah.
the first law book, I think one of these might be that. I think they're the right size. One of them could be Rage of Dragons, but they both feel a little bit too heavy to be Rage of Dragons, so maybe not. One of them might be Malice, which would all of these things are heavy and bad for me right now. And then there's this one.
You say all those things are heavy and bad. No, they're not, because they would still remove a book from your TBR.
Yes. I mean that me trying to engage with it would be
Yeah.
it would be heavy. Not I mean I would do it. So this one has like a funny shape, and I don't know what's going on down here on this cover. Like it feels like there's something weird about this book cover. So I am not sure exactly what's going on with this book. I have no idea what this is. Yeah, neither for this one. No clue. This one I still think might be the Lies of Lamora, which would also make me kind of sad. So I don't know what to pick. I think I should pick one of the medium ones. I want to pick this one because I want to know what's going on with the shape of this book. Like, is it squished in its wrapping? What's happening? Because poor book. Not that you would have done anything. It could also just be a used book that is like kind of squished and funny shaped. But unless anyone has objections, I think this is the pick. All right. I know I'm coming up with nonsensical reasons to pick these books, but I think I'm just avoiding the ones that I
think next time or the time after, since you have a little bit less, we could also let Atlas pick one day.
Oh, that would be the angles are just so hard with something like this, you know? Like
we can also
oh no.
What is it?
Disaster.
It?
I have no idea if I'm gonna like this or not. And yeah, I think it has a little bit of like dampness damage, which is what's causing the like funny shaped. It's Six of Crows.
Oh.
Have you read Six of Crows?
Yes.
Okay, did you like it?
Yes. I loved it.
That's good.
Okay, you do like plot, right? This one
I do. I hated, so I bought this before I read. It's Six of Crows. I bought this before I read.
The Shadow and Bone
Yes.
trilogy. But the
So I
Shadow
read
and Bone
Shadow and
trilogy.
Bone, and then I tried desperately reading Siege and Storm, and it was bad, and I could
Yeah,
not make it
but
through, and I
okay.
did not finish.
So you don't need to have read the Shadow and Bone trilogy to read this duology,
Yes.
for one. And
I've
for
heard it's a heist. I do like a heist.
Yeah, and for two, this is such a fun heist book. And also, like, a lot of people who didn't like, because I still have, okay, I still, because they're right here, right? So you can see those, like, the Shadow and Bone there, right? You can see this. And I keep it because I did like reading it. It was fun. But, well, no, I did not. Okay, I did not. I liked a couple characters in there, but like the main character infuriated me so much, right? And I hated it so much. Also, I think the Shadow and Bone trilogy has a lot of pacing issues. Six of Crows duology is pristine. Like the especially like the first one, you can clearly see like the plotting that she has of everything is like really like there's always things going on. Also, there are a lot of points of views, but they're always like it's a linear kind of time frame, so it doesn't feel too hard for you to follow because you're following another point of view, but it's still like the same kind of thing. So if they tell you, oh, I have to find this thing, then the next part is this one person who's finding this thing, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I do think it's like 70-30 that I will like it. I think it's likely I will like it.
Yeah.
I think I've mainly been avoiding it, not partially because of the previous trilogy, but I also knew that this is much more highly regarded than the
Mhm.
Grishaverse trilogy is. I um
I would say the only thing that I had to suspend my disbelief on, which is the case for all the older YA books, is that those characters are all supposed to be in their like 17 or
and
so.
they act like they're like 22. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
in my mind, I put them like they're 20 to 25, like the TV show did, right?
Yeah.
And it felt way better in my mind, right? Um,
Yeah.
Because
I
also a lot of things happen to those characters. They're 17, but like they're like, still like they're criminals and all that, and they have done so much, and you're like 17, really? But
well,
like,
I've been avoiding fantasy YA. I just haven't been really reading any
so
sci-fi
this
fantasy
one
YA.
is
So
really feeling the kind of fun fantasy YA, but still like adult kind of themes and stuff, and like the pacing is really good. So it's just I it's really easy read because like the magic, also obviously like Shadow and Bone, you know a little bit about the magic kind of system, so that's all that you kind of need to go through, and they would explain to you anyway. Also, in the team, there's only like one character who's like really a magician in there. So like it's a lot less magic and a lot more like learning about also this completely different part of the world, which expands, also I think this book is happening 1 year after the end of the third book. Um so yeah. So that's all, right?
cool.
But yeah.
Well, I will give it a try. I'm gonna look on my Libby and see if I can get
Oh,
Six of Crows.
is it an Audible exclusive?
Oh, if it is, then we might have to defer this one. I don't want to pay for Audible for this.
Well, one thing to note, I have it on Audible for you.
I could get it in Spanish or um, what German
Yeah,
or
it's an Audible exclusive in English. I know. I could give you my account so you can log in and get it.
I.
I have it.
And that makes me feel icky.
Why? Nobody's using my account. We're allowed to have like a family kind of thing. that they have
Yes.
those family accounts, so why should I
Yeah,
not?
I mean, I guess it's basically the same as you handing me the book and letting me borrow it, right?
Yeah,
Sure, fine. Thank you. Appreciate it.
sure.
This makes me sad.
Don't be.
Alrighty. Um, yeah. Okay, well, if you're in the chat watching, let us know what you're going to be working on the next sprint.
Mhm.
I think we should make this next one on the longer side rather than the shorter side, um, to give me a chance to really get into it. I've always liked the cover of this book a lot. I really like
Yeah, I know.
I like the shininess. I don't know if you guys can see, but
It's
the
hard.
shininess is coming
Hard
through.
to do.
And I also, it might be hard to tell on the computer. So like you can look at the cover online, but the crow's wing comes down
Yes.
and you can see the towers are made through like in between the
Yeah.
feathers of the wing. And I also think that that's really nice. I think it's just a really thoughtful cover.
Yeah, the second one also is pretty good too. It has the same you see
Yeah,
like
the towers under the wings situation, right?
the same thing, right?
And I love that that was a continuation from one to the next. I think that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. I also have this like special edition that has like all this foiling.
It
It's
is very pretty.
it's hard to
So
show,
you
but
liked it enough to buy a special edition.
well,
Um,
also it's this exclusive edition that was sent for like everyone, but I got it
okay.
for like kind of cheap. Uh, you see, you have like special also maps there, which are pretty fun. You have a map of the world, and this is a map of for the heists, basically.
Mhm.
So yeah. And honestly, like this book is just so much fun. You have like a lot of like quotes and like easy, like moments, and like it has this found family kind of aspect. Of
Mhm.
course, like when you see those characters, they've already been like some of them together, but they are working for the first time with this one last person, which is the only one you don't have a POV for in the first book. You do have him in the second book, but not in the first one.
I actually, something I might do is I might actually try. I haven't read a whole book physically in a long time,
Uh-huh.
like a while. Maybe we'll give this one a shot during the first sprint and see if
You
I can
can
get into it.
try. It's
Maybe I
a
can get into it physically. We'll see. And if I'm just like slogging and like really not feeling it, then I will tap you for your audible. But yeah, we'll yeah, we'll try it. We'll try.
you should
It'll be
give it
great.
a try. Because like I know you haven't liked Shadow and Bone, but a lot of people didn't like Shadow and Bone and they loved
I've heard that. And that's one of
so
the reasons why I didn't unhaul this. I
yeah.
unhauled Shadow and Bone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had the whole trilogy and I got rid of them.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
thought about it too. But I have the space, so and
yeah.
they are kind of nice covers, so I do have to say.
Yes.
Um,
Alrighty. Why don't we? Now that I know I'm doing it physically, I don't want to make it too long, or else I'll get really just beat down. How do we feel about 30 minutes for this one?
yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay,
It's okay
awesome
for
sauce.
Scorpio.
All right, we're gonna try 30 minutes. Good luck, all. Please wish me luck. I need some support on this one.
Good
Um,
luck.
and I'll see you guys in 30 minutes.
Hello. How's it going? You're muted, Angela. Still.
Hi. I read 26 pages and I almost fell asleep 4 times. I was like,
Aww.
not because the book is bad, just because I'm tired. And reading
Uh-huh.
physically when you're tired is not like
Yeah.
usually a
Yeah.
good choice.
Well, also the beginning, I mean, after like 50 pages or so, you're inside, like they're starting and stuff, but it's always harder right at the beginning. But
Yeah, I think this one, and this is probably true for most fantasies, but the number of like unfamiliar names and terms and places and like
yeah.
I
It
I
takes,
know it's
it takes,
always a learning curve, but I find it especially difficult when I'm reading physically instead of listening to it. Because when I'm listening to it, it just like floats
okay.
by and it's fine, and I can pick up on it pretty quick. But when I'm reading it, I think about the pronunciation every time I get to a word, and it's like annoying to me.
Okay.
So
For me, it's actually, I mean, I do think about the pronunciation of those words when I read it physically, but I'm more likely to remember. Whereas with the audio, I'm like, it comes out, and then I'm like, what is happening again? I have no idea those words if they come back. It doesn't make any sense to me. So
yeah,
that's why sometimes, especially for fantasies, I do. That's why I'm doing some immersive reading. I was cleaning a little bit during this spring, so I did do most audio,
hmm
and I did read along at the end, but it's okay because now I'm like 200 pages in, so I did read like 25 pages too, about.
ooh. So this is what Scorpio says. Scorpio. So what is your like primary genre? Then
Yeah.
like what or well I think what we really should ask is like what are your top 3 books, because if we know what your top 3 books are we might be able to find you like a fantasy adjacent recommendation that's like in between
Yeah.
what
Because
you
there's
like.
like fantasy thrillers, fantasy mystery, fantasy horror. There's
Yeah,
fantasy sci-fi. There's fantasy romance. Obviously, there's a lot of different like, and also like urban fantasy, or which is like happening in our world. So we're just a little bit of magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but we'll see, maybe we can get Scorpio over to the dark side at some point.
Yes.
Oh goodness gracious, how yeah, yeah, I think I'm just tired. And I think most of the 26 pages are just like the front matter of the book. I don't think I actually read. Oh, no, never mind. It starts on page 3. So I did read a significant, I read a chunk, a little chunk, but a chunk.
You did. You did.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where if I decide to continue reading physically, I'm just not going to read this book until our sprints next week. And it'll just be like I'll read the whole thing on sprints. And that's probably the only time I would ever
That's okay.
actually get around to reading it. But I mean, if we look at our timeline, this is my 3rd book. We wanted to get 1 book a month, right?
Yeah.
And we're 2 weeks into the first month. So, I
You're
could,
fine.
if I read even 50 pages a week,
Hmm.
um, you know,
It would be good.
yeah, finish it in time.
So I did only read 25 pages, but a lot of things happened suddenly in my book.
Intense.
I can't talk about it because all of it would be spoilers, but I have questions and I have, huh? What? And I thought it would go zig and it's going zag, and I'm having a lot of fun actually. But I have
Good.
lots of questions.
That does sound entertaining. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Also, I finally know that the girl, she's like 11, so maybe I didn't notice it the first time when it was told at some point, but it was told. So.
Yeah. I also just, okay, so I have this problem when I read books.
Hmm.
And and when I watch movies and things. I'm going to use a movie as an example, and then I'll say how it is happening in this book. So the first time I watched Star Wars, oh, and I see Scorpio's comment. As soon as I'm
Hmm.
done with this anecdote, we'll chat about it. So the first time I watched Star Wars, I really had a terrible time because I completely ignored Han and Leia because I thought Luke was the main character. And I was like, this is so boring. And why are we spending all this time with these people who don't matter? Yada, yada, yada. And then, like, I got, further into the series and I was like, oh, wait, they're all like equal co leads. And I just had this misconception about which one was the important one. So if I don't know who the main characters are supposed to be, like if I don't know who I'm supposed to care about, I can just like really whiff on a piece of media and not engage with it the way that I should. So I think
Interesting.
what's challenging about this right now is I don't know who like the crew is. Like I don't know which people are people that I should care about and which people are people who I don't care about. Like I know our first two point of view folks, and that's fine and whatever, but I feel like I'm not like paying as close attention as I should.
Well, one thing to note also is that the points of views, they sometimes show another point of view from like a person who, because like it's a crew of 6 people, right? And they're more or less, most of them are kind of all kind of important. Although I would say in the first one, like generally, like the sixth one is obviously not as much in there. I would still say that obviously, like Kaz is the main character for me in the story, just because he's kind of a leader for this heist, and he's gonna, you know, lead the rest of the party. But also, if you look in terms of number of POVs that he has, I think he doesn't have so many. Especially like in the second book, he doesn't have a lot of them. And I think that's also the strength of this book is that there are pretty strong like other characters that you can still root for. They also have pretty strong like romance like relationships and stuff in there, right? And backgrounds and stuff. So it is one of those that in the beginning I was unsure because that's too many characters for me to care about. But that's an interesting take because I have to say I never had your problem because I never went into like a book or a movie telling myself, oh, who is like the filmmaker or the author trying to make me care about? Because like I either cared about one person or several or no one, regardless of what people would tell me, right? And in some books like Shadow and Bone, I loved one of the side characters, which is why also I was so pissed off because it was not enough for me. But I loved, one of them. And like, Nikolai was my favorite character for me in there. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's me as a plot reader, to be honest.
probably.
Okay, so Scorpio says A Catcher in the Rye, which I have not read.
I have not read that either.
Not Without Laughter, which I also have not read, and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which I have read and which is brilliant. By the way, Not Without Laughter is a coming of age story about an African American family in the Midwest. It's loosely based on his life story. Okay. Interesting. So we've got some classics.
Mm-hmm.
Some very down to earth stuff. You're right. No fantasy, Scorpio. Nothing even fantasy reminiscent. So the very first thing that comes to mind, which we usually our first ideas are not our best ideas. So let's keep that in mind. But the very first thing that comes to mind is the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. From like a slightly more literary than normal point of like the normal fantasy point of view and a really mystery centric point of view.
Well, I would say that it's also sold usually as a mystery with fantasy element, right? More than the fantasy with the mystery. So it could actually be a good thing to start with, starting with an actual mystery that has something in there, right?
And it's got plenty of plot twists. So I'll try to sell it to you. And if you decide never ever to read it, I will. You have it on your Kindle wish list already.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, success. I will say maybe it's a library borrow if that's an available option to you rather than a buy, because I don't know whether or not it's going to be a success. But it's so good. It drops you in the absolute middle of nowhere, and you really don't know what's going on when you first read it. Read the like first couple of chapters. If you if you haven't read the plot synopsis in a while, my recommendation would be don't. Just like go in blind with whatever you kind of vaguely remember. It's it's really good. And there's one that sounds really familiar. So the one that I'm recommending is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. That's by Stuart Turton. And then there's also The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is a different book. And that one's like
that one is literally fiction.
Yes, that's contemporary fiction. But what I'm saying is just like they are different because sometimes we get them confused. I have gotten them confused. But.
Yeah.
Clementine, was there anything?
That's why I also sorry. Because one thing I wanted to mention is that in the UK it is actually called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Yeah, it's not.
But since in the US the Evelyn Hugo book was so well known, they put the half in there on top. So
it's fine candy, Scorpio. It doesn't have much substance. But it does taste really good, and you eat it really fast.
It's a really fun one. I would say for people also, that's why probably there's a lot of people who don't read too much fantasy who still love this one, is that you don't have to really understand too much of a world, because if you start to, it doesn't make sense. Honestly, because as fantasy readers, both of us, we do enjoy, like, we have enjoyed the series, but also we're like, yeah, we don't want to poke holes because there's big holes in there.
So I am more go with the flow than Clementine is on the whole poking front. Yeah,
I just accepted from that series from the beginning that it was not gonna be like one where you could have like clear rules, and it was always gonna be the case.
Yeah.
But it's, especially the first one, honestly, is a lot of fun. Also, like, one thing, if you don't really like fantasy, also maybe that's why it works, is that it dumps you in the action from the start, and you start to learn what's happening. A little bit like, the Hunger Games, if you were to start.
I was about to say, if you read and liked the Hunger Games,
but also, like,
and you're an adult now, you'll probably like.
Because like the Hunger Games starts also with the reaping, but imagine more like the Hunger Games, but it's like the day of the Hunger Games. So it's like you have like the morning that she starts to like get to there, and then finally she has to do the thing. Also, it is really like the Hunger Games in some sense, because you're in this like dragon academy to get like dragon riders, and like they die of mysterious kind of things because it's very dangerous for whatever reason. Although, but like it's really a lot of fun, honestly, and I think the characters are fun. There's like I did have issues with the pacing of the second book, but like it was still fun, I would say.
Yeah, and I felt like the first one, there is a cliffhanger, but the first one is a very satisfying read, I thought. Yes. So if you're like, oh no, a series, like I think you would be just fine.
I mean, there's still questions at the end of the book, and you learn some things, but there's a satisfying, end battle kind of thing. So you do, get some resolutions in some ways, right?
And if this comment, I think this makes me even more likely to say that the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle would be a really good potential choice for you. It's my go-to like sci-fi mystery thriller to recommend to people.
Well, I have one which is fantasy mystery, also like one author, but I would not recommend this as a start because there's a lot of fantasy names in there. Because Robert Jackson Bennett, right, The City of Stairs. But it is not as accessible for sure. It's really high fantasy. There's a really nice mystery in there, but like I would not ask. I would not tell.
I think like something that is contained is a really good place to start. Yeah.
For sure.
Yay! Oh, they're on Kindle Unlimited. That's great because you don't have to pay for it. So
that way you can try. If you don't get into it, you just pass on.
Yeah.
What else did I think of? Honestly, I don't read too many like mystery thrillers. So even the fantasies that I read that have a little bit of mystery, it's really a little bit. So it's not,
I read quite a few like sci-fi and fantasy mysteries. I really, really like them.
mhm.
They tend to be experimental in their sci-fi fantasy, and I would say basic in their
Mhm.
mystery, which makes
Yeah,
me hesitant to recommend a lot of them
exactly.
um,
Mhm.
to mystery readers who are really like adept mystery readers, because they're just not brilliant mysteries.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I will keep noodling on this, and
Mhm.
in like after our next sprint, I'll be like, oh wait, this
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah. Do we want to go again for a little while? See if we can make it through. Ooh,
Oh, Belladonna. It is fantasy. I think it's YA, which is why I haven't read it.
I also haven't read it. I know
I
I've heard of it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I've
look for the
heard
cover.
good things of it.
Is it
Uh,
horror?
sorry? I
Is
think
it
it's
horror? Or no?
no. I think there might be a little bit in there of some elements, but I don't think so. I'm not too sure. Is it Adeline Grace? I want to say
It
Adeline.
is. Yes, you're right. It is.
Don't ask me why I remember author names of books I haven't read or
Yeah,
thought
brilliant memory on that one, because I did not have any recollection
of. Mhm.
of that one.
So
Here.
it definitely is a fantasy book. I Yeah, I don't remember the plot at all. I want to say that it might be like a retelling of some sort, but I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong.
Okay. All the Stars and Teeth was pretty popular when it came out too.
Mm.
So that author might be pretty good.
One thing to note, Belladonna is a series also, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, gothic.
Trilogy.
It's a kind of gothic tale. I don't think there's a mystery in there. It's more like gothic. The
The covers are really
atmosphere,
pretty.
the covers are really pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Alrighty. Why don't we go ahead and sprint? What length of time do you want, Clementine? You can pick this time. I picked last time.
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to have you like, sleep again, so let's take the same time we had before. 30 minutes?
Okay. Sounds good. Though it will probably happen to me no longer, like no matter how long we pick, because like 2 minutes and I'll be like, you know, I don't know if it's like I don't know how to like wake myself up now in a way that's not going to like make me not be able to fall asleep later.
um,
Um, Maybe I just need to like sit up more straight and not let
uh-huh.
myself slouch. We'll try. I'm
Change
ready.
position a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
Change position a little bit. That's what I
Yeah.
do sometimes. I go to clean like one thing. For example, I clean the table where I put a few things, and I put them away for a few minutes.
Yeah. Alrighty. Good luck.
Good luck. Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Alrighty, so how did it go, Clementine?
Good. There's so many questions. You remember the little at the beginning of each chapter? I don't know the name of this thing. But it has
Epigraphs? Usually we call them epigraphs.
epigraphs with an I. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. So I I can't say about one of them, but one of them was like I saw the author, I saw the book, and I was like, huh? So I can't say anything, but it makes me very, very yeah, there's a lot of in there. And I don't know what it is right now. I thought there was some time travel, but I don't think it's time travel. It's very interesting. Also, there's some connection to our world in some ways. It's very like I don't know what to think, and it makes me guessing. So it's really nice so far. But I did make some progress, right? Because I'm like 240 pages in. I was 110 pages when we started. So
Yep. I made it to page 50.
hey.
I the first like 10 minutes I was fine.
Uh-huh.
And then there's it would just be like I would be reading something and then like a song would pop into my head and then I would start thinking about something else and then I would fall asleep. So struggling. But okay, it's not like it's definitely like there are things going on, which is good. I don't have like a solid grasp of.
Yeah, I think you need to give it another 50 pages probably to get more of a grasp, right? Usually we do say fantasy, like give it like 100, 150 pages depending on the the pace of the book and also like the how big the book is.
Well, it's split into parts. And I can tell because they have dark pages, so like where the part ends, and that's right at page 100. So I think if I'm like really not feeling it by then, I might,
let me check.
I might let it go. But right now I don't see myself DNFing it. I'm just like not. I'm also just like not trusting myself that I'm like noticing everything or like getting everything,
Yeah, so the I would say it's fine. And if you want to talk about it, I mean, I read this book twice, so I do remember quite a lot. Also because in the show it doesn't have anything about Six of Crows because I think they wanted to have they were actually ushering this
I thought people had talked about the characters for Six of Crows being in the show.
The characters were there.
I am not ever going to watch it.
So one thing is the show was much better than the books, right? But they actually do have the storyline for Shadow and Bone.
Mm-hmm.
But they did include the Six of Crow characters, but obviously the Six of Crow, this story that you read is happening 1 year after the end of the trilogy. So when they essentially did the show, they actually added a bunch of stuff. And like in the first season, it was kind of funny because they did integrate actually the crew doing something, and that's how they crossed with the other characters that didn't exist in the book. And it was like kind of fun, and they did that with the second. And I thought they would do like the first 3 season would be like the 3 books of the series, but they actually finished, and the end of season 2 was the end of a trilogy essentially. And so I was like super excited for season 3 because I was like, we're going to have actually, because they did usher at the end of season 2, the very beginning that would lead you to where the characters are in season 3 in the Six of Crows. And it was like, yes. And then they canceled the stuff. And I was like, no, why?
Yeah. It's not bad. I have trouble sometimes like really getting behind criminal main characters if I don't feel as though they have like a cause, right? Like if they're just being criminals because it's like edgy or whatever, I'm like, well, I don't love that. if they're like so I know that you weren't the biggest fan of Mistborn, but in Mistborn you've got a heist and you've got some people who are like in the criminal underworld, but they're doing it to like start a revolution, right? And it did feel as though there was some like moral underpinning to that. I do find it challenging to get behind people who are like just gang members. And so far, the way that things are presented is that they're just bad. Like they're just bad.
Okay, so that's one thing I didn't know at all about you and your reading, because I do love like the grayish characters. I find I do sometimes, don't understand because they do really really bad things for bad sake. But like characters like this, criminals that are just in it for the money or just do things, but they're not like hurting people, physically. I found them really fun to see actually. And I yeah.
No, did you say that aren't hurting people physically?
Well, they're hurting other gang members. That's fine.
I don't know, friend.
Come on.
I don't know.
Okay. I have okay.
It
I
depends
have
on
to.
how the author expects me to see them, right? Like if the author is like, "Oh, these people are bad people," then I'm like, "Okay, we're watching bad people. Gotcha." If they're like, "Oh, they're so like edgy and hot and like they're teens and yada yada yada," I'm like, well, do you want me to think they're cool or do you want me to think they're bad? Because if you want me to think they're cool and if they're doing just awful things, then I'm like, eh. If you want me to think they're bad when they're doing awful things, I can get on board with that.
Well, I think that's the whole point, is that you can see it however you want, right? They are doing bad things, but they still have their reasons, which might not be good reasons for doing that. And like, some of them also, they get into this gang territory kind of thing, and they don't realize what's happening for that. I do have to say, in the band in there, obviously, like the sixth one, he's a cinnamon roll. He's so nice. Um, there's two others, the two women. They're reluctantly doing this. So they do have a lot of reasons, and a lot of good reasons. And I do have to say, when you start to hear about the past of other people, you start to learn a lot more about them. And even if you cannot get behind some of the things, you know, but they also do get some kind of reckoning. They do talk about it between themselves at some point, with some of the characters that are more, you know, that have more morals than others, about saying like, this is a line that I didn't want you to cross, or things like
Yeah.
this, and why did you do this, and so on, right? But I guess if you don't like this, then I don't know if you like it as much as I thought.
It
But
might be that I'm just still in the beginning where it's like
well, you're
everyone's
still
just
at
a
the
tough
beginning
guy,
where you
but
haven't had also any mention of their past, really, and you don't really know them too much. You're like, especially I think in the beginning, you have this big kind of thing. You see like them as just being, just terrible to others and stuff, and not, their own kind of motivations and stuff. Which you can see. Also, like, I did enjoy like characters like Matthias. I don't know if you've seen him yet, because like he thinks he's virtuous, but he's not. Also, right? So like there's so many like layers to that for sure, I would say.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. We'll see. And I know that I showed this earlier, but just a little celebration. Good job, Scorpio. 25 years.
Yes, good job.
It seems like we're reading at like a similar pace as one another, which is fun.
Well, I mean, it happens sometimes. We end up having books that have about the same amount of pages. We never know.
I think I'm generally like a little bit of a slow physical reader. Like it feels like I'm moving through slowly sometimes. Um,
Well,
so
you're at the beginning of a story. So, like you said, you're still tripping on words that you don't know.
yeah,
The beginning of a book, I mean, physically, you certainly. I always read far less fast than when I'm like in the middle of the story after that. Um, Also, if I restart reading, it takes me a while to get back into the pace. So yeah.
yeah, yep. How are we feeling? Are we feeling tired, or are we feeling like we want to read more?
I'm feeling tired, I have to say.
I think I can tell that you're waning a little bit, and I think I am too. The number of times I've done this is a few too many for me. So, do we want to try to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight, and then um, next week we will return?
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, Scorpio, thanks for being here, and anyone else who's watching, thank you for being here. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. See you next time. Bye.